Hi guys, this is the video version of a live stream I've done. What I tend to do when looking into a topic is I'll boot up a live stream and talk about my thoughts and feelings on it, just to make sure that I can speak about it in a coherent manner and that I actually have points that I want to say. Once I'm confident with it, I'll go back and re-record it in a structured video. If you want to see those live streams, make sure you're subscribed and click the bell icon. These men truly need to be stopped. Immediately. Reality Check podcast appears to be, from what I can discern, a group of three men who believe themselves to have the articulacy and the charisma to create a successful podcast. This is what I believe, looking at them. They have a little setup, they've got microphones, they truly thought they would be viral. They appear to focus on saucy topics and interview OF models, which is exactly the wrong combination to have when you want to be monetized and put in the algorithm on YouTube, so I guess maybe they didn't want to be viral. Just a side note, wouldn't simply covering these topics and interviewing OF models get stale after a while? Like, I know everyone has different experiences and different branding and different things they do, but wouldn't it all just kind of be the same? I have the opposite problem. My subscribers have no idea what's coming next. At first, I'm doing news and drama, then I'm doing gaming, then I'm doing creative writing and audiobooks. They truly have whiplash. They do not know what is coming next. I keep them on their toes. Reality Check, which I'll now refer to as RC for brevity from now on, found themselves in controversy after Rebecca Goodwin, a previous guest, went to TikTok to expose her awful experience during a podcast recording with them. She reportedly drove 3 hours for the unpaid gig and was talked over, told she was a waste of space, and did nothing for society. RC fired back by saying that they would release the full, unedited podcast. Spoiler alert, it did not make them look good. Rebecca is introduced to the podcast by one of the hosts saying, "Today we have HOE number 1. That is then preceded by him turning to her and saying, "What's your name?" I'm sorry, what? You invited this woman to come to your podcast and do an interview with you, and you can't even introduce her professionally? He either A, has genuinely forgotten her name, or B, doesn't care enough to introduce her properly himself. You clearly wanted this to be your profession. You have a YouTube channel, you have a logo that is branded, you have mics, you want this to be your career path, yet you haven't even got the basics right in the first couple of minutes. And I'll give it to Rebecca, she takes it like a champ, she takes it on the chin, she goes, wow, and laughs. But she doesn't take any major offence to it. She's probably heard a lot worse being an OF model. She doesn't appear to be somebody who takes offence to things easily, which is why her reaction to being on the podcast should be a red flag. This leads on to her very first question, or technically second, because he just asked her what her name was. Why do you bleach your private area? Okay, fair enough. If you wanted to be a professional podcast and behave in a professional manner, I would have just asked her, what do you do? What's your background? What made you interested in OF? But no, straight down to the nether regions. She explains that down there, her skin is darker than the rest of her body, which, by the way, is completely normal. In response to that, out of left field, they then ask her, why? What's the problem with having brown skin? What's the problem with having dark skin? Trying to insinuate that she's racist, I think? What a weird reaction. It's like they were trying to get her into hot water the second that she got there. Plenty of people use products to bleach or colour correct sections of their skin that don't match up to the rest of their body. There's colour correctors for dark circles or redness on the face. And I imagine that if you had a desired look that you wanted and you were going to be unclothed a majority of the time at work, you'd probably correct that too. And it is completely natural to have things like dark circles under the eyes, or redness on the face, or skin to be darker in areas of the body. That's absolutely fine. In fact, I'm only using the term colour correction because that's what the products are called. It isn't correcting anything, there's nothing wrong with it. But if people would like to use certain products to make their skin more even in tone and pigment, they're well in their rights to do that too. If they're using them properly and safely, why not? It doesn't make them racist or somehow colorist for wanting to do so. They then get into the topic of shaving, specifically shaving down there. The RC clan decide to state that women who have unshaven nether regions, for lack of a better term, are unattractive. And Rebecca takes offence to this. She says it's completely natural for body hair to be on the body, and there's nothing wrong with it. She points out that one of the hosts has a very lustrous, bushy beard. She has a point. There is nothing wrong with having hair on your body. It is completely natural, and it is ironic that somebody with the most bushiest beard I have ever seen is telling a woman that to be attractive, she needs to shave. They argue back and forth, saying that it's a preference. However, I have a problem with this. A preference is saying, for example, I prefer blonde women. A standard is saying all women who are brunette or redhead are ugly. It's okay to have a preference. A standard is where you demonize a group of people for lacking your desired trait and putting them down. That's the problem. I don't believe that having preferences inherently makes someone prejudiced against a person who does not have that trait that they like. But it definitely is prejudice to put down an entire group of people for having a trait you don't like. Then Rebecca goes on to make a statement that makes all of the RC lads recoil in horror. She states, the only people on the planet that don't have hair are children. We know what she's implying here. I want to make it clear, Rebecca does not state definitively that men who exclusively like women with shaved nether regions are paedophiles. She never says that. That's what the guys think she's implying, but she doesn't say that at all. However, I will comment on this because I have seen this been brought up in different conversations, and I want to put my 2 cents in. I believe that men or women who prefer or exclusively like women with shaved nether regions aren't automatically paedophiles consciously or unconsciously. I also don't believe that it's dodgy or implies that they have tendencies of a paedophile without really being one entirely. I think it's important to look at beauty standards and the corn industry and how that has impacted beauty standards. I think the beauty standards of shaving down there are more likely to have come from the corn industry and how we perceive women. Whether or not those origins of having shaved nether regions come from a nefarious place, I think the majority of people nowadays who have that preference aren't dodgy and don't have any inclinations of that whatsoever. I think having hair down there is only one indicator that a person is an adult, and I feel like certain people with conditions like alopecia or those going through chemotherapy that causes hair loss could be infantilized by this thought process. It would be a red flag for me, however, if someone came up to me and said, by the way, I only like women who are hairless, who are petite, who are straight with no curves, who have little or no chests, who have high voices, and who have childish tendencies and behaviours. I personally don't believe just ticking off one of those characteristics makes someone dodgy. Katie Clittam has a video on this entire situation where she talks about it as well, and it's interesting to see different perspectives. This is just my value on it. They then talk about how much money she makes, which leads on to them also talking about how they believe she doesn't contribute to society. Fun fact, Rebecca buys properties and then rents them out to lower income families for a fraction of the price it would cost them to rent any other property. She's doing good work. She has charitable endeavours. She talks about the fact that she earns a higher wage than most people and therefore she pays a larger tax bracket, meaning she directly is contributing to society. How these 3 men have the absolute audacity and gall to sit there in that room, in their little podcast setup, and talk to a woman the way that they're talking to her, and say she's not contributing to society, is beyond me. Where do you get the confidence to do this, and how can you be so unself-aware? Good sirs, I beg you, what could you be contributing to society other than talking about how the way you believe women should look and then holding your hands up and saying, hang on, What about the expectations women have for men? It's not fair on us. What are you talking about? You are just yapping on and on. You are here making this woman extremely uncomfortable for absolutely no reason other than to upload it to your YouTube channel. How is your YouTube channel contributing to society? If anything, it is spreading harmful opinions about adult workers. And yes, the adult work industry is extremely complicated. It can be harmful, it can be liberating, depending on how you look on it. It's a much more complicated issue than a lot of people would like to assume, and I don't have the time to talk about the ins and outs and the history of the adult work industry, but I can tell you one thing. Rebecca Goodwin has done a hell of a lot more for society than you three combined could ever do. She's a business owner that provides people jobs. She has a charitable endeavour wherein she provides low-income families with the opportunity to rent a home, making it so much more accessible for them. What have you done that comes close? She does go on to talk about why she does OF, and the reason she does it is because at the age of 4, unfortunately, she was violated, for lack of a better term. Rebecca says now she feels liberated in the fact that she has control. She can choose what she does, when she does it, with who she does it. Her body was used by another person against their will, so now she's using her body to support herself. And if you watched my video on the aftermath of CSA, that's something that very much can happen. If a child is violated in that way, it can cause hypersexualization. Some people shut down. They don't want to be physically touched whatsoever. Some people want to control it, and so they take it into their own hands and become promiscuous in later life. This is a very real after effect of CSA. It's really good that Rebecca has noticed this within herself and noticed that she has tried to liberate herself using OF. As long as she has the supporting treatments and therapy and help alongside it, and she's being safe and responsible with consenting parties, I don't see an issue with it personally. There is something to be said about making a coping mechanism a career, but that again is another extremely complex topic. You could say the same for musicians and artists who use their past trauma to channel into their artwork, but then again, this is also different because it includes someone's own body. At the end of the day, I don't want to police what someone else does with their trauma and how they cope with it and what they do or do not do with their bodies. I can only advise using my own personal opinion, and that's my piece. I don't get any other say in the matter, and I won't go into it any further. The RC lads do question her upon this as to how it could be liberating, but I think that you need a deeper insight into CSA and its after effects to truly have a conversation on this. I think maybe they should just have accepted it and moved on. They talk about how she's selling her dignity and it's undignified for her to be doing this, and she combats this with saying, well, I'm happy to sell my dignity because I'm not selling my time doing hours and hours of work for very little pay. And I've got nothing much else to add. If she wants to sell her dignity, she can sell her dignity. And let's be really honest, lads, this podcast where you talk about women's bits and what they get up to in the bedroom isn't exactly the definition of dignified, is it now? It abruptly ends after a conversation that she has about taking her children on holiday because she bought a motorhome. And it sounds lovely. She said that she went down to Cornwall and then drove up to the Lake District, and they all kind of scoff at this, like, you only took them to Cornwall. You only took them to the Lake District. She's boosting UK tourism and the UK economy by spending money in the UK. What more do you want this woman to do for society? She ends up just getting up and leaving and saying that this was disrespectful and goodbye, and I don't blame her. They were disrespectful this entire way through. She was called a HOE at the very beginning of this podcast. What did they expect? At the end of it, they call her delusional and thought that they were just having a laugh. No. You did not set the tone for this being having a laugh. She seems like the kind of girl who could take banter. She seems like a girl who's got thick skin. She's probably heard a lot on the internet about herself, her career. She's probably had jabs taken at her children before. She's probably very used to things like this. But this is clearly not what she expected. At the end of the day, Reality Check does not deserve a platform. The way that they talk about women is abhorrent, and the way that they treated Rebecca was disgusting. She gave up her time and energy unpaid to do this, and this is how you treat her? Do you guys honestly expect any other guest to want to come on after this? Because I would be shocked if they do. It would be no benefit to them. A lot of these people have 10 times the amount of followers and subscribers that you do, and honestly, they're performing you a service by being there, and this is how you treat your guests? Absolutely not. And that's all I have to say on the topic. I hope this was informative. You can check out the links in the description. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.